Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to all our dear guests and eminent speakers in the 9th edition of India Conference at Harvard Business School and Harvard Kennedy School. I'm Rupakshi Goyal.
I'm Kavikram.
Today, it's evident that India has the potential to be one of the largest growth engines of the global economy. Not only has India been one of the world's fastest growing economies, not only has India attracted investors and businesses over the world, but it has showed a high level of resistance during the financial crisis and powerful resiliency via its speedy recovery.
But Rupakshi, India is definitely the land of opportunities, but is the India story fading away? Given the challenges that we are facing, is our growth limited only to the recent past? What about deep-rooted corruption? What about the increasing urban divide, rural-urban divide? Are we really the next frontier?
I see where you're going, Kavi, and thus we have one of the leading global forums to discuss this fascinating nation. This is a forum where business leaders, policymakers, members of the academia come together and discuss opportunities and panel discussions, and opportunities and challenges through panel discussions and keynote addresses and networking lunches.
Well, as global Indians, we sincerely hope that all of us take away from today's discussions thoughts and inspirations on how each one of us can truly contribute to this future.
We would like to thank all of you for being here and being a part of what we hope will provide a unique perspective on this exciting economy. Without further ado, we are going to introduce our first event of the day. We have amongst us very special global leaders, Mr. Bharat Desai and Dean Nitin Noria. I'm highly privileged to introduce Mr. Bharat Desai. To start with, to quote US Magazine, Bharat is rated amongst 8 self-made stars who have built tidy empires in an array of industries. Self-made entrepreneur found Syntel in 1980. Syntel now has 20,000 people and market cap of around $2 billion. Syntel has won various prestigious awards such as Fastest Growing Economies, America's Top 200 Small Companies. Bharat found Syntel, which runs Prayas, a volunteer-driven program established to educate underprivileged children. Bharat has also established a foundation to support education and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Rupakshi. It is also a distinct pleasure to introduce our very own Nitin Noria, the 10th Dean of the Harvard Business School. He was previously the co-chair of the Leadership Initiative here and the head of the Organizational Business Unit. Dean Noria has authored several books and articles on different topics such as human motivation, leadership, and corporate transformation. We are very proud to have them both today. May I please welcome them to join us for the first event today. In the first event today, the Fireside Chat, they will discuss their personal journeys from growing up in India to becoming global leaders. They will share their thoughts on the challenges and advantages of working outside and give us some advice for the new breed of global Indians. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So it's my true privilege to have the opportunity to have this conversation with Bharat Desai. When I was growing up, my great hope in life was actually to become an entrepreneur. And here I am. I became an academic instead. So he has lived a life that I really hoped to have. So therefore, it's going to be a great conversation because I'll get a chance to, through him, vicariously relive the life that I wish I had. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break this conversation up into 4 parts. I'm going to ask Bharat a little bit about his early career and his early life. Then I'm going to have him describe to us the Syntel journey. Then a little bit, if we have time, a little bit about his other passions outside of work, and he has many interests. And then finally, a little bit about his advice to all of you. I hope to be able to leave 10 or 15 minutes for questions that you might have for him. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin every session, every of these little parts of our conversation with a rapid-fire round of questions. And the rules of the game, Bharat, in this are no explanations. All you have to do is to choose one of these words, and that's it. Okay? So let's get started. Okay?
All right.
Again, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to start by talking about what you thought were the greater influence in your early years. India or Kenya?
India.
Mother or father?
Mother.
High school or college?
High school.
Getting into IIT or getting on the list of Forbes?
Getting into IIT.
Becoming an engineer or secretly hoping anything but?
Secretly hoping anything but.
Pleasing your parents or pursuing your passions?
Pursuing my passions. My dad can vouch for that, by the way.
Science or humanities?
Science.
Looks or personality?
Personality.
Intelligence or attitude?
Attitude.
Who did you most admire, Pandit Nehru or Sardar Patel?
Sardar Patel.
Tata or Ambani?
Tata.
Fine literature or popular fiction?
Fine literature.
Multinationals or Indian companies?
Multinationals.
Partying or studying?
Party, of course.
Faculty members or friends?
Friends.
In college, were you more often drunk or sober?
Sober.
Gods of Indian movies or gods of Indian religion?
Gods of Indian religion.
Who did you hope to marry, an Indian beauty or an American beauty?
Indian beauty.
Arranged marriage or love marriage?
Love marriage.
The bigger rivalry, India-Pakistan or Coke-Pepsi?
India, Pakistan.
So tell us a little bit about your early life. People, I've often met leaders who say that with the benefit of hindsight, sometimes they underappreciated how important these early influences were to who they became. So as you think about your early life, what were some of the most important influences that have shaped who you've become today?
I think that's a great question, and I can say that while I was living it, it certainly posed a number of challenges, and I'll discuss a couple of them with you. But it greatly impacted who I am and who I've become. So I was born in Kenya, and Kenya at that time was a sleepy colony. Really a very easy life. All I worried about was going to school and playing cricket. And the country became independent, and my dad made a very bold and wise decision. He felt that with the political turmoil that was about to unfold and had started unfolding in pockets, that we should really leave Kenya as soon as possible and go to India. So I was 11 then. And the Indian government had actually sent a refugee ship for any Indians that wanted to leave Kenya and go to India. So my dad got us a passage on that ship. So it was me, I was 11, my brother who was 9, my sister who was 4, and I. And my father stayed back. So we get onto the ship. It was a refugee ship, so it was a cargo ship. So one of the first things we had to do was get on the ship and find a place to sleep, And so we found a little corner. And the journey was, I quickly realized that in that group, in that circumstance, I really became responsible for all the decisions for my family. And I remember distinctly when the ship landed in Bombay at about 2 p.m. on May 14th. It's a day I'll never forget, 1964. My mother says, okay, I'm going to stand in line. You have to go collect all our luggage. Now, our luggage was in holds. Now, for those who may not know what holds are, they're like these deep pockets in the bowels of a ship. This is what cargo ships were like before containerization changed the industry. And so there were these 3 cranes pulling stuff from these hold areas, and you had to watch what was coming. And I was responsible for identifying our 22 pieces, engaging a coolie, and making sure we got the stuff out there. So I did that. It took me several hours to identify our pieces, get them, while my mom tended to my brother and sister. And by the time it was our turn to clear customs, it was almost 2 a.m. And my mom was, not very knowledgeable about the law, and between the duties we had to pay, the fines we had to pay, and the bribes that these guys asked for, our family was actually wiped out when we left when we entered India. And so we started a life in Ahmedabad, where I went to school. And a couple of things that I want to share with you from that period. I remember it became my responsibility to bring supplies for the family. And I remember my mother would give me 2 rupees to go buy, vegetables, sabji le aao, from the market. And I would take great pride in going to the market, getting all the produce for 1 rupee and proudly handing her 1 rupee back, The next challenge actually was getting into a good school. So as you know, how tough it is to get into a good school anywhere in the world, and in India, it's doubly tough. So it was important that we go to an English medium school. We got into one English medium school. The problem was almost nobody spoke English there. So, but there was a great school called St. Xavier's High School, and I said, I should get into this school. So I would just show up. I was 12 at that time. I'd just show up and say, I want to talk to the principal. And I'm actually surprised they let me see him now, but I'd go see him, and the guy would ask me, so why do you want to come to this school? And I'd say, I want to study French. This is the only school that teaches French here.
How did you know that?
I knew that, yeah. And I had studied French for a few months in Africa. I was really passionate about the language, and I wanted to study it. And he would, laugh at that, slap me on the back and send me packing. So this went on for almost 18 months. And I show up one day, and the principal is out sick. And there's a stand-in. And as acting principal, he looks at me and says, I've seen this kid a lot here. So he says, what grade are you trying to get into? And I explained, and he says, show me your report card. I showed him, and he says, okay, go pay your fees. So I said, what about my brother? So my brother and I started at St. Xavier's. So I started in the 9th grade. I think those challenges and our ability to sort of move through them had a great impact in shaping how I thought in the future.
In some ways, what this reveals is that just very early on, encountering the unknown, finding your own way, being persistent about getting the things that you really cared about getting, which was getting into St. Xavier's,
right.
That appears to be something that has been very valuable to you all through your life.
Absolutely.
I also know that you went to IIT Bombay, which is a thing that we share in common. And so let me start with the first question, which is, what was your rank? Your IIT entrance exam rank?
I was 48th in the country.
Wow. Well, see, he always did better than me. I was 600.
Don't ask me how I did after that.
That's the magic question. Which a lot of people, of course, as in many top schools, they get so intrigued about getting in. But the question is, what did you get out? What did you get out of your experience at IIT Bombay?
I'd say the main thing I got out of my experience was first just interacting with bright minds and learning how they thought. I'd unequivocally say over 90% of what I learned in the IITs was in interacting with my peers. They were bright minds. They always had a different way of looking at a problem. The other capability I think I built was the ability to just take on something and be allowed to go and do it. And I think that created a lot of confidence in just tackling any situation.
So at some point you moved to the United States, and from what I know, perhaps we should have had your wife Nirja up here too, because the two of you, and she's right here in the audience, so welcome, thank you for being here. You created this company even while you were in, it sounds like when you were in graduate school,
Correct.
Syntel. So tell us a little bit about this Intel story and how did it start?
Yeah. So I always thought I'd want to be an entrepreneur. And as my wife got to know me, she absolutely encouraged it because she said nobody in their right mind should actually hire you. So we both started Syntel. We were both in graduate school at that time. We started the company with $2,000. And we started it in our kitchen, literally, and started focusing on building a company.